for the Queen. So a warm welcome from the THLH Mahavidyalaya English Department to everybody with us today. Hopefully, we'll be enriched by his lecture, and it is of vital importance for our students. So we have already many participants who have joined with us, and hopefully others from outside our college have also joined. And these lectures actually are a series of lectures, and this one is also a part of that. And this we have tried to organize during the COVID situation, since face-to-face meetings are not possible. And all the lectures, including this one, are also live on Facebook, as well as will be available on YouTube, so that in future also students can access them. Just a brief intro about Dr. Samipendra Banerjee. Dr. Samipendra Banerjee has been teaching English literature at the postgraduate level for over 15 years. He completed his MPhil from Jadavpur University and his PhD from Vishwabharati Shantiniketan, broadly on historiography and politics of post-independence Indian drama in English, with reference to Mahesh Dattani. In 2017, he won the IFTR Conference Bursary Award to present his research at the University of Sao Paulo, Brazil. In 2019, he was selected in and completed a short course from the National School of Drama, New Delhi. And in 2021, he successfully attended a Sangeet Natak Academy funded acting workshop conducted by Shudrak. He leads the drama club of University of Gorbongo, where he acts and directs theatre productions by the students. He has translated Bertolt Brecht and Karel Churchill into Bengali and authored several plays. He is also on the editorial board of several peer-reviewed journals. His topic today is critical perspectives on Dattani's Bravely for the Queen, and it will be of high importance for us to listen to him today, because he is an expert on Mahesh Dattani, and his experience in theatre, in performance, as well as in the form of intellectual interrogations, will be of great help to all of us. So welcome once again to everybody, and welcome Dr. Shomitupendra Banerjee for today's lecture. I hand it over to you now, and you can start it over now. Thank you, sir.
Yes, thank you, Devayon, for this generous introduction. I have been into some theater, but of course, I won't say that I am a theater person as such. So anyway, today I would be speaking on Mahesh Dattani's Bravely for the Queen. And before I begin, I mean, I am grateful to the authorities of the THLH Mahavidyalaya, the Department of English, and particularly Devayon. He's like my younger brother, asking me out today for this interaction. You see, one point that Devayon was mentioning, this is something that Dipankar Da of Vishwabharati was also saying some days back. Online platforms particularly, and we can now say that we have students across the world, actually. I mean, and we are students as well. We have our students everywhere, so this is a nice opportunity. So and I find a wonderful young crowd as well here. So today I will be speaking on Mahesh Dattani's Bravely for the Queen, and I hope I'm properly audible and visible as well. I do not have a presentation as such, But what I would like to do is I would like to discuss, I would like to interact as well. I would welcome questions, if any, from you later on in the interactive session. So, this would be basically a platform where I would address UG students. So I would try to see that the critical issues are covered of the play particularly. Okay, so and I will try to show one. There's only one photograph that I would like to show in the early part of the talk. Okay, so you see, where do we start, or how do we start with this? Now, Mahesh Dattani is seen as an important figure in what we refer to as the Indian drama in English, or some say Anglo-Indian drama, Indian English drama. Several terminologies are there. Is it okay? I think I should continue. So several terminologies are there regarding this. Now, of course, I mean, there's no denying the fact that Mahesh Dattani has brought this genre to everybody's attention, and Mahesh Dattani has been the most successful dramatist in Indian English. Now, instead, I think everybody should mute themselves, okay? Because we have been doing this for quite some time now. Yeah, so if everybody mutes themselves, it will be nice. Because I about 50 people here. So, okay. So you see, this looking at, there has been a usual pattern. If you look at the different books and the different usual notes and guides that are celebrating the way Mahesh Dattani has been a contributor, a significant back to that history. What we need to do is we need to change this approach. Okay, even for students, number one, the historical awareness is necessary, but the historical awareness has to be contextualized properly. So what I prefer is, instead of reading Mahesh Dattani as a kind of a closeted, a kind of in a watertight compartment of what we refer to as Indian drama in English, it is important to contextualize him in the field of Indian theatre, the tradition and the historiography of Indian drama and theatre, okay, the dramatic traditions of India. So that way we will not see Dattani only as a figure within Indian English drama. So something that this is a viewpoint that needs to be changed, and Dattani needs to be contextualized within the larger ambit of modern Indian theatre as such. Now, you see, what happens is that if you look at the order in which Dattani's plays appear, the way in which Dattani starts publishing his works, and of course the stage performances also. So Dattani emerges into the Indian theatre scene in the 1990s, basically. So the plan is I will briefly talk of Mahesh Dattani as an introduction, and then I will move on to the introducing the play, and then I will draw upon certain critical issues that the play evokes, and then we can move over to the questions. So you see, Dattani emerges in the 1990s. He starts with Dance Like a Man. Although he starts with Where There's a Will, let us take Dance Like a Man, 1989, Bravely for the Queen, 1991, Final Solutions, 1993, Tara, 1995, and On a Muggy Night in Mumbai, 1998. Then comes 30 Days in September, I guess, in 2001, and so on. So you see, but the major focus of Dattani's plays, the plays for which Dattani is so well known and is read over and over again, are Dance Like a Man, Bravely for the Queen, Tara, Final Solutions, primarily, On a Muggy Night in Mumbai as well. Now, all of these are the plays of the 1990s. Okay, now what was the scenario like during the 1990s? This is something that is interesting, and this is something that we need to observe. If we look at the tradition of Indian theatre, you see that the post-independence Indian theatre went through a concerted process of decolonization. Okay, this process of decolonization was essential because with independence there was a search for an Indian theatre, so-called Indian theatre, which led on to this decolonized Indian theatre. Okay, so what we identified was a certain kind of a theatre of roots. So there was a return to roots. There was a highlighting, a championing of the folk theatre traditions. Now, in my other lectures, I have spoken extensively on this post-independence, politics of the Indian theatre, and how the central government institutions were encouraging a certain kind of a certain kind of theatre of roots as such. Now, what it did was, so far this is fine, but by the time it is the 1990s, this has already become a cliche. The central government has announced schemes, has announced different kinds of incentives as well, not financial, maybe not monetary incentives in that sense, but different kinds of incentives to such directors who would work with folk forms. Now, this had led on to a certain kind of a cliche by the time we arrived in the 1990s. And you see, there were alternate voices as well, voices in the Indian theatre who were not buying this whole idea of the politics of representation in terms of Indian theatre. Okay, and this would include people like Mahesh Elkunchar, for example, G.P. Deshpande, for example, and also Mahesh Dattani. So what I'm suggesting is that there were always different kinds of theatre in India. Okay, and this one kind of theatre to be promoted as the Indian theatre is something that needs to be seriously questioned, and Dattani does that. So we need to contextualize Dattani from that sense. So you see, one thing that Dattani always says that Dattani was creating a different idiom for himself, and he was challenging. This is a famous line from an interview that he gave to Erin B. Me quite some time back in 1997, and all those who are interested in Mahesh Dattani should go through this particular interview. So he says that he was challenging the way India and Indian has been traditionally understood in a modern theatre. Challenging the way India and Indian has been traditionally understood in our theatre, in our modern theatre, right? So a new kinds of theatres were awaiting exposure in the 1990s. And moreover, you all know that the 1990s was the era of economic liberalization. Globalization was round the corner. It was already emerging. So, the scenario was significantly changing. And I would say that, this changed scenario, a different scenario altogether in the Indian theatre scene, in the general cultural scene of India, is responsible for the success that we associate with Mahesh Dattani. The other thing is that this new kind of theatre was a more pluralistic one. Or rather, it was a theatre of difference. I would like to say that this was a theatre of difference that was being celebrated, right? And one of the most important signs that we can see from here is the beginning of the Bharat Rang Mahotsav. And when did it start? It started in 1999, crucially, just at the turn of the century, as we were about to step into the 21st century. So the Bharat Rang Mahotsav, which you must know, all of you, is a national festival organized by the National School of Drama Theatre Festival, where it is all the best plays from all corners of India are invited. So you see, by the 2000s, by the early 21st century, the idea of a monolithic, a singular Indian theatre was already gone, and it was being challenged, and it was being replaced by a more pluralistic notion of an Indian theatre. And that is where Mahesh Dattani comes in with his sense of pluralism. Okay? The other reason for Dattani's success, this is the last little part, is that Dattani is probably the first English language playwright whose plays are actually successful in the theatre. See, if you do not have a living tradition of theatre, then it's useless. I mean, because people do not write plays to be read. People do not write plays so that those plays will be selected in university syllabi and the students will write answers to those questions. They don't write for that. They write plays in order to be staged, in order to be lived. Okay, so Dattani is the first English playwright who is actually successful, and I would like to refer to the Dance Like a Man. If you know, the Dance Like a Man played in the Kamani Auditorium in New Delhi. It started off in 1995, and it played for an unprecedented run in July and August 1995, keeping the auditorium packed every evening. And it ran for the longest duration with extra performances due to popular demand. So you see, this is from Anjali Multan. And not only 95, 96, the Dance Like a Man is still taken up. And there are many directors who are working with Dattani's plays. Arvind Gaur, for example, one of the leading directors of the Hindi theatre circuit in New Delhi, he is working with Dattani's plays. So see, what we see here in Dattani, if we now move over to the issues that he raises, his acute and sensitive portrayal of contemporary India's dilemmas, hypocrisies, tensions and conflicts, especially of the marginalized people, is something that Dattani constantly reworks in his plays. And these have earned him a place among the foremost playwrights in the country, not just as an English playwright. Okay. The language issue is very interesting in Dattani's case, and I love talking of this. So does Dattani, actually. There is a story regarding that. An interviewer once asked Dattani, why don't you write in your own language? I mean, why do you write in English? Why don't you write in your own language? And to this, Dattani replied, I do. Just this. I do. So English is Dattani's language. Even in 2021, we still have this wrong notion that English is an essentially foreign language, a colonizer's language. It was, of course it was, but English is a recognized language in India as well right now. Okay, so of course, what is Dattani's focus? Dattani's focus is always on the urban middle class, the upper middle class family unit. Dattani's focus is always on the family. And one interesting feature about Dattani's plays is that there is hardly one specific individual whom you can identify as the protagonist. Okay, like can you say for sure? I mean, if I ask you who is the protagonist in Bravely Fought the Queen, is it Dolly? Is it Jiten? Is it Nitin? Is it Alka? Is it Sridhar? Is it Lalita? I mean, it's difficult to tell. Okay, because Dattani adequately distributes the balance. So we have come a long way from the centrality of a protagonist, from a play like Hamlet, from a play like Macbeth, where all the attention is taken away by the protagonist. So we have come a long way from that. And in Dattani's plays, the protagonist is the family, the workings, the inner workings within the family, the politics, the tensions, the hypocrisies, the guilts, okay? the blames that are constantly floating around. So another format that Dattani usually uses is his use of dramatic irony, the gradual revelation of the darker secrets that tend to unsettle the apparent balance of the characters, within the characters. Dattani uses this to expose and to critique the hypocrisies of the urban Indian middle class, revealing the cracks, that are hardly discernible beneath the outward shine. So there's an outward shine, everything is nice. It apparently seems so, but then gradually these cracks seem to appear. GJV Prasad has a wonderful line. GJV Prasad points out that Dattani maps the life of middle-class urban India. Dattani maps the life of middle-class urban India, and that his plays mirror the aspirations and frustrations, the conflicts and the compromises that characterize the contemporary middle-class Indian's life. An important aspect of his plays, of course, is their contemporaneity, the fact that Dattani's plays are very contemporary, very related to our own times. And this is something that Dattani achieves through the careful choice of his subjects. And what do these subjects speak of? They speak about the urban multicultural worlds we live in and inhabit, as Anjali Multani points out. And while Dattani continues to do this, Multani also notes that, there is no preaching, there is no dogmatism, just a direct presentation. This is something that's very specific about Dattani. Dattani doesn't want to preach. Dattani stays away from the didacticism that other plays might be affected with. Later, while commenting on the opening of Dance Like a Man, Anjali Multani also further points out, and she says that Dattani's play plunged the audience straight into a domestic scene intensely familiar in its Indianness, without declaiming a national identity from the rooftops. I think you need to listen to this once again. So what does this play do? It plunges the audience straight into a domestic scene, which is intensely familiar in its Indianness, without declaiming a national identity from the rooftops. So that is what is very specific about Dattani. And this comment is about Dance Like a Man, but isn't this comment also about Bravely Fought the Queen? Because that is what happens in Bravely Fought the Queen. We are taken directly into a domestic scene, right? So a hesitant Lalita enters the Trivedi household, and she's encountered by a masked dolly, and the action takes us straight into the domestic scene with an effortless ease. If you follow the way the dialogues proceed in the play, so then we will see that the dialogues proceed with an effortless ease, and they just pile up one after the other, and there's a conversation that builds up. So Dattani is wonderful in working out this language, and this is where the language never seems to be imposed from the top. It doesn't seem to be unnatural, something that was a problem earlier. So where do we pick up this play? We pick up this play, of course, with Dolly's mask. And what a time to talk of masks. We are in the middle of the second wave, and God knows how many more waves are awaiting. Masks are a reality in our life today. Although the mask that Dattani refers to, in fact, not one mask, that the play actually refers to several kinds of masks. But the first mask that Dolly is using is a mud mask, which she applies on her face, which she has applied on her face. It's for her before she is getting ready. And of course, she cannot talk. She cannot express herself fully. So that crack would be visible. I'll just read this section where Dolly and Lalita are having a conversation, and I'm trying to show that as well. And Dolly says, I'm sorry, I wanted to laugh, but I was afraid. Lalita says, afraid? Afraid of what? Dolly, afraid that I would crack my mask. So she would be speaking something like this. So you see, dramatic irony is at its best here. Dattani, what he has done is immediately introduced the contrast between appearance and reality. Women in the play have to pretend. There are pretensions. Appearances are at the heart of their life. They constantly pretend that they're leading a wonderful and a happy life. So the mask is the facade that symbolizes this layer of pretension. I'm sorry. Now, while it is imperative to, apart from the ironic potential of the play, like Bravely for the Queen, we can read this irony theatrically as well. Now, this has to be read in conjunction with Dattani's sense of the theatre. In an interview to Anita Nair, which is also widely available and very popular, Dattani had said that I see myself as a craftsman and not as a writer. To me, being a playwright is about seeing myself as part of the process of a production. I write plays for the sheer pleasure of communicating through this dynamic medium. Okay? So you see, this is very significant because here is a playwright who doesn't write plays just for the sake of it. But he writes plays in order to it to be staged. And he has this vision of the theater in front of him while he is creating it. So this dynamic medium that Dattani speaks of is, of course, no less a concern for him, along with his representation of the marginalized figures of a contemporary urban India. And it's in this urge to communicate through the theater that identifies Dattani's curious blending of the stage spaces with an awareness of the plurality of contemporary India. Now, coming back to Dolly's mud mask, now Dolly is unable to laugh in spite of a desire to do so because she was afraid of cracking her mask. But it's a crucial symbol. Now, in the theater, you see the actor's body plays a very crucial role. It is itself a symbol. So when we are reading the play, there is in my other classes, usually I talk about the distinction between drama and theater. So theater is the live performance form. Drama is the book that you are reading. But the book is not meant to be read. It is meant to be seen. So what we do is while we read the play, we have to constantly visualize how it would be like on the stage. So you see, the actor's body is an important symbol in itself, and add to that the symbol of the mud mask for which he cannot laugh properly. Okay. So, one has to imagine the fact that the actor playing Dolly on the stage will visually strike a certain kind of a pose with the mask on her face, a face that will be a sharp visual contrast to other faces, right? Because otherwise, the whole point is lost. And when it remains inert and unresponsive to situations or moments of humor, the irony is further emphasized through its sheer visual rendering. And the irony is no longer a merely verbal one. So this is where theater carves a distinct scope of its own. And this is where I would say the verbal ironies in Dattani are not simply verbal ironies. They are dramatic or theatrical ironies that explore the body of the actor, the theatrical space as such. Okay, so I've already started talking about the theater. So, we need to talk of Dattani's sense of the theater and how do we visualize Bravely for the Queen. This is for the students. I repeat that while reading, it's not just about what this character is like, what this character is doing, what are the major themes of the play and all that. These are important, of course, but you need to visualize the character because otherwise the character won't take shape. You won't understand the significance of that character. Imagine what would she wear? What is she dressing? And what kind of costumes would you make him or her wear? What would Jiten wear? Think of those things. Okay, so that always exposes us, that establishes a better relationship of us as readers with the text, particularly a dramatic text. Now you see, most of Dattani's plays usually they encounter, they involve. I'm sorry about some sound coming out from outside, but anyway, multiple stage levels. There are multiple stage levels. Okay, so Dattani's plays are never flat on a unidimensional surface. There are higher ends, there are lower ends. So these are not only starkly contrasted physical zones, but also they operate as separate time zones. That allows the playwright to kind of shuffle between time past and time present. And the dialogues, aided with the visual patterns of contrast, what they do, they effectively enhance the verbal ironies of the text. Now, to start with, let us read the stage directions here. Okay, the stage directions with which the play begins. And this is something, again, we students usually ignore. We go straight into the dialogue. No, I mean, you have to read the stage directions and read them very carefully, because particularly for a playwright like Dattani, the stage directions matter a lot. So he's not saying them just for nothing. You need to visualize that. The living room of Dolly and Jiten Trivedi, a posh suburb of Bangalore. The decor is expensive, perhaps tasteful, but badly maintained. Upstage center is dominated by a well-stocked bar. On a higher level is the bedroom of Jiten and Niten's mother, referred to as Ba. She is bedridden and is visible through the screen wall when it is backlit. Now, this is interesting because Ba is an offstage character, but there are dialogues for Ba. A staircase is visible along with a small landing which leads to both Ba's bedroom and Dolly's bedroom offstage. So that's the other part. Now, upstage left is a largish window overlooking the front of the house. Next to it is a stereo system. Music can be heard. It is a tumri sung by Naina Devi, something that goes on throughout the play. Downstage left, exit to the kitchen, and downstage right is the main door of the house. Okay, I'm not reading the other part. Now, if we just, if you can just allow me, I'll just try to show you something. I'm just presenting just one little picture. Sorry. It's somehow not working. Just a minute. So I hope you've been, able to listen to me properly, and I'm also, audible and visible, as they say. Yeah. So, is it visible now? Yeah, but there's an image that I'm trying to share. Is it visible?
No, sir.
Okay, I think I'm getting, maybe I'm confusing this. I don't know why. Just one last try, okay? No, okay, leave it. I'm sorry about this, but I just wanted to, show you. there's a 9-stage grids basically. How do we understand? We need to divide the stage into certain sections in certain parts, and that is what I was trying to show. See, the area that we refer to as upstage is the. You see, the stage is always understood from the perspective of the actor, from the stage itself. So where the background is there, where the cyclorama is there, okay, and we are talking of a proscenium stage, so that is the end part of the stage. That is how deep you can go in. That is the upstage, and downstage is more towards the audience. So the front of the stage, where you can directly face the audience, that is the downstage. Now this whole stage area is divided into 9 grids. There are 9 grids, and these 9 grids are, so downstage center, downstage left, downstage right. Think from the perspective of the stage towards the audience, not vice versa. Okay, so downstage center, downstage left, downstage right. Then comes stage center, stage right, stage left, and again downstage center, downstage left, and downstage right. Okay, so from the perspective of the stage. So these are the 9 positions that we need in mind in order to properly understand. So if you are aware of different positions, then you can easily or clearly understand or properly understand how the stage direction works. Let's see, what is the purpose of this multi-level stage that Dattani uses? Now, there are overlapping dialogues, okay, that point to Dattani's use of the space. In Act 2, for example, Ba's dialogues are superimposed with those of Jiten and Nitin in the office. Ba seems to live in the past, clutching to her memories. This simultaneous use of different spaces at the same time is part of Dattani's theatrical innovation that places 2 different realms together and offers to contrast them, ironically exposing their bondings as well. Okay, so it's very relevant that while Ba would keep talking of how she protected her sons from their abusive father in a distorted way, highlighting family, home, at the same time, Jiten, in a different space, would think of selling off their old house, for money. So this is briefly about the theatrical space in Dattani that particularly we can see in Bravely for the Queen. What are the other kinds of spaces? You see, the idea of space, the idea of looking at any literary and dramatic work from the perspective of space is very crucial today and a crucial intervention today. Now, apart from this, of course, there is the women's space. And if you look at the, particularly in Bravely for the Queen, there is a brilliant manipulation. Just a minute. I'm sorry. So there's a brilliant manipulation of the intersection between gender and space, right? Act 1 is entitled as the women, Act 2, the men, Act 3, it's a literal free for all. Okay, so these gendered distinctions are there very much, and this also refers to the space. Now, the most interesting use of the women's space is that of Ba. She is off stage, but that area is lit up with a backlight, so you can only half see her. You cannot fully see her. You can feel that she is there, and you see she is paralyzed, and therefore she is rooted to her space there. But she uses a bell to call out for her help, and uses that bell to exercise her power over her daughters-in-law. And from a detached space, she kind of casts long shadows over the stage center where the action takes place, right? And where there is, even if you look at, Dolly's space, Dolly has internalized the kitchen space where she can imagine, which she uses for her romantic escapades with the imaginary Kanhaiya. Okay. Alka's dance in the rain is an appropriation of the space in a different way. So you see these constantly, happen in different ways. there was actually in a production by Michael Walling, which was directed by Michael Walling, which is the famous Border Crossings productions of Bravely Fought the Queen, which was done in 1996. There was this brilliant use of the set, use of the space, and these spaces. I mean, these different gendered spaces were brilliantly, put out, brilliantly brought out by that production. Because you see, Dattani says, "I take up cudgels for women," right? So apart from that, of course, there's a men's space as well in the office, and that is Jiten and Nitin's space. Their tables are. Have you noticed this? That what is the size of Jiten and Nitin's tables as contrasted to Sridhar's? So we need to notice every little detail, right? Sridhar's table is smaller compared to Jiten and Nitin's larger or bigger tables. So there is a class hierarchy. There is a hierarchy within the company, the office, because they are bosses. Sridhar is an employee. So that their incorporation of that space is again highlighted through their use of those tables. And there is the couch. The couch is of course the space where Jiten has his own sexual escapades, and so does Nitin, right? So there are these different use of the spaces, and there's another interesting thing when Jiten is very casually announcing that after the Revati thing is over, he wishes to do away with this office, and that actually threatens Nitin. Because you see, Nitin has internalized the office space as his own private space within a larger public space. And so if Jiten decides to do away with the office, his private space would be gone, a space where he seems to have relocated his sexual identity as well. Now, speaking of sexual identity, we of course have touched upon the representation of women, but of course that is one of the major issues in the play, how women are spoken of. Dattani repeatedly. One good thing about having a contemporary playwright is that Dattani is always available. Dattani is such a wonderful person as such. He's an amiable person. He's a warm and a friendly person. And there are lots of interviews of Mahesh Dattani that are available, which you can readily refer to. So in most of these interviews, he speaks of the fact that, there are always this dual self within me, Dattani says. I have the male self is more or less content and happy, but the feminine self inside me, that demands expression. So that is why I, take up cudgels for women. That's what Dattani says. And this brings us to the title. Okay, let us now talk briefly about the title, Bravely Fought the Queen. I go back to the lines where this reference is used. All of you know what this reference means, the title means. So Lalita says, so bravely fought the Rani of Jhansi, Alka, Khub ladi mardani wo to, lightning. Don't miss out the stage directions. The moment Alka says, Khub ladi mardani wo to, there is lightning. And Dolly says, bravely fought the manly queen. Why manly? Alka, because she was brave enough to qualify as a man. And Lalita says, full of manly valor, right? So this is the reference. And let me also draw your attention to this famous Hindi poem, which all of you know probably, from where this title is inspired, the Queen Rani of Jhansi, Lakshmi Bai. And this poem was written in 1930 by Subhadra Rani Chauhan. It's a famous Hindi poem, and I'm reading the first three lines from the poem. It's really fascinating, this poem. Let us listen to this. Chamak uthi सन 57 में वो तलवार पुरानी थी, बुंदेले हर बोले के मुंह हमने सुनी कहानी थी, बुंदेले हर बोले के मुंह हमने सुनी कहानी थी, खूब लड़ी मर्दानी वो तो झांसी वाली रानी थी. I hope all of you understand Hindi nowadays, given the huge media exposure that we're having through our smartphones, particularly the OTT platforms. So, you got this. But let me repeat this. And look at the rhythm, look at the way it is, talking of Jhansi ki Rani. Chamak uthi san sattawan, that is 1857, India's first war of independence. And what was that talwar? Wo talwar purani thi. Lekin, that sparked off in 1857. It was a purani talwar, but it sparked off in 1857. And how did I know about this? Because this becomes a legend. See how myth is, kind of reworked here. I didn't know of it, but I heard it from the wandering minstrels, Harbole, Bundelkhandir Harbole. I have heard it from Bundelkhand's Harboles. Unke muh se humne suni kahani thi. And what was that story? Khub ladi mardani wo to Jhansi wali Rani thi. Okay, so that is the reference. You see, both Rani Lakshmibai and the poet Subhadra share a common history of resistance against not only patriarchal domination, but also against gender stereotypes or patriarchal gender roles. Rani of Jhansi has been valorized as an icon of Indian nationalism. She was one of the first freedom fighters who had resisted the British colonial forces. So the Rani seen in the, in the poem, the Rani is seen as stripping her feminine weaknesses, donning her military colors and all that. A militant masculinity by picking up a sword and plunging it into a sheath at her waist. Now, in an essentially patriarchal society where the problem lies, let us try to identify that. A national icon like Rani of Jhansi must be judged along male parameters, okay? Because she is manly. Khub ladi mardani wo to Jhansi wali Rani thi, right? Bravery and manly valor, these are examples. In the Indian patriarchal social setup, bravery is a quality which has been traditionally associated with the male. Hence, because she displays bravery, Rani of Jhansi is dubbed as manly. Now, there is an interesting reading of this in a recent essay by Piali Gupta, where I found, now, she interestingly explores the politics of this valorization, okay? She quotes Harleen Singh, and Harleen Singh, in her perceptive study, The Queen of Jhansi, says that the many stories of Rani Lakshmibai do not extol women's aptitude to lead, but are rather exemplary tales of women's ability to serve in the tradition of the national family romance, the private and the public sphere as mothers, wives, daughters, sisters, or even queens. Because even when you're a queen, you're ultimately serving a certain purpose. Okay. She also refers to, Piali refers to Muasheda Devi's essay, Muasheda Devi's little-known biographical work. Okay, that is also very interesting, Jhansi Rani, which was written in 1956, where Muasheda Devi says that I felt her widowhood liberated her in many ways, and that a woman whose vermilion bindi has been wiped off her forehead by widowhood, whose Mangal Sutra has been torn off her neck, whose fatherless son was deprived of his rightful inheritance, had not taken to fighting motivated by a desire for her own personal success. Okay, so you see, unless the Rani of Lakshmibai is seen as a grieving and a wronged mother, so a widow, and therefore fighting for her son's rights in the unfortunate incident of the death of her husband. So unless she is placed within this, logic, it becomes impossible to justify her, resistance to traditional gender roles. So, there is a lot of thinking that needs to be done on this. So we often say casually that this is a reference to the bravery of the Queen Rani Lakshmibai, but it's not just that. Try to imagine how patriarchal roles have been assigned to women, and even when they have been valorized, what has been the cost of this valorization, right? Now, of course, Dattani, one of the most strongest areas of Dattani lies in this continuous questioning of such patriarchal assumptions. So a similar logic is can also be found in Dance Like a Man, I think. I mean, it's always good to refer to the other works. It's better to read 4 plays of Dattani rather than go to several other critical works, which many of which are not of that standard. You see what happens by choosing dance, Jairaj in Dance Like a Man is never able to grow up into a man in the eyes of Amritlal. Because Amritlal never thought that Jairaj would seriously pursue dance. He would choose dance as a profession. And because, it doesn't fit into his idea of the designated women's space and the designated men's space and the distinctions thereof. So he says, if you remember, a woman in a man's world may be considered progressive, but a man in a woman's world is pathetic. So that's his idea of the women's space. So that's Dance Like a Man. Now, if we come back to the Rani of Jhansi and also Naina Devi, I may not get the full time to explore all of these. See, these are the two, Piali also mentioned that these are the two absent presences, okay, two absent characters who deeply influence the way the play works against patriarchy, becomes a statement of the oppressions of patriarchy. So the queens, these are the queens who fought bravely, something which Dolly, Alka, and even Ba, they are probably unable to do so, okay, because in their respective limited spheres. Now, both Ba and Dolly have been subject to physical torture, extreme physical torture, and also Alka in the hands of Praful. So they have been tortured by men, either husbands or brothers, which is a common event in most Indian households. But Alka's liberating dance in the rain can be seen as a symbol of protest. But how much we can, see it as a symbol of protest, actually, that also needs to be, is debatable, because ultimately the play ends with a sense of, a grimness, okay? Because there's little route for escape. So it's difficult, Dattani's title was probably written with the idea of a construct of power, an imagined form which will remain beyond the reach of the real women of the play, and that is how Dattani imagines these situations. Another example would be Final Solutions. Let me also refer to it. In Final Solutions, there is this undercurrent of patriarchal oppression, because this play is about, as Alec Padamsee says, is about transferred resentments. This Dakshar Hardika remarks with a detached sarcasm the attitude of the average Indian male. And I quote here, like Wagga, he will come home, demand his food, criticize it before eating it, answer me in grunts and and stare into space. Then he will feel he is somebody, a complete human being. His whole day of money making will have meaning for him. Okay, so there's a reference to his whole day of money making. And we all know that the work, the way we have been understanding and looking at work has been now the treatment of his women is that they're not merely a pathetic and a pitied lot, okay, they are complete human beings. Now, a little reference to these absent women as well. Subhadra Kumari Chauhan, she was a first woman satyagrahi, who quoted arrest in Nagpur in 1923. And her story is also about how she went against traditional gender roles. Because you see, her husband herself was, her husband was a freedom fighter who had joined Mahatma Gandhi's struggles, and her husband was already in jail. So you see, there was a suggestion from her family, quite obviously, that okay, your husband is already sacrificing she joined the struggle, she went to jail, and of course, her being in the jail would have made situation difficult for her children, for the upbringing of her children. Now, what do we do about in such a case? So, do we pass judgments, or we notice? So, Naina Devi's Thumris are constantly mentioned. Naina Devi was actually Nilina Sen, a Bengali, born in the household of Keshav Chandra Sen, and later she was married to the Maharaja Rich. Also referred to in Bravely for the Queen as Ba Recollects. She is not allowed to sing anymore. She is not. It is unthinkable that she would sing Thumris, because Thumris are love songs, and in those days were sung by wives. A reference that is also there in the text itself. Okay, so but Naina Devi chose to sing, and she braved her way to the top of to becoming the most important, the most well-known, the best Thumri singer, right? So that you must have understood what kind of a struggle it was for her as well. So all these women are linked in some way or the other with this. Okay, now this I have almost reached the end of my talk. I think I have been speaking for quite some time, and this should leave some room for interaction. Now, this of course brings us to the question of gender, because see, in Dattani's plays, it's not just that he speaks about women; he speaks of homosexuality. Now, this is something interesting, because you see, in 2021, when we look at homosexuality, then it's different. But when did Dattani's play emerge first? In 1991, right? So quite some time back, and it was not so easy a topic to be discussed during that time. See, this is something that there's a criticism of Dattani. I mean, there's a remark regarding Dattani that he exposes, that he explores the invisible issues of Indian society, and something that we prefer to tuck beneath the carpet, something that we do not want to talk about, something that are social taboos. What Dattani did at the close of the 20th century was to bring those up, so that a conversation ensues, so that these so-called embarrassing, so-called taboo subjects are brought to the forefront and discussed and spoke of. So in 2021, of course, it's a far better milieu to talk of Dattani's plays as such, but it wasn't the situation in the 1990s, right, when he is referring to homosexuality. And of course, this is where gender comes in, and we have seen how Jiten is a closeted homosexual. I'm sorry, Nitin is a closeted homosexual, right? And this is the fate that many people of alternate sexualities had to go through, because the only available sexual orientation is that of heterosexuality, right? So that's the only format where you can be included. Otherwise, you do not belong. And that is what we refer to as heteropatriarchy or heteronormativity, right? Let's try to understand heteronormativity. It's a term that refers to the belief or the assumption that heterosexuality is the norm, or that heterosexuality is the only normal or acceptable sexual orientation. Nothing else exists. Like so this is heterosexuality. Heteronormativity. And it also suggests an institutionalization of heterosexuality, resulting in the marginalization of non-heterosexual lifestyles. And this is what Adriana Rich has so wonderfully referred to as compulsory heterosexuality. That heterosexuality is compulsory. That's the only way we can, know. So this, you see, this imposition of heterosexuality, this understanding of heterosexuality as the only possible normal and therefore normative is at the root of the different, marginalization of different other sexual identities, right? Another term that of course, all of you know, or most of you know this, but I just thought of discussing these, is cisgender, right? Cisgender or cissexual is something that we are using fairly recently, and it's a term applied to people who identify with the gender assigned to them, okay? So you are being assigned a gender, a woman who identifies as a woman, a man who identifies as a sexual male, right? So is a cisgender man or a cisgender woman. Cis basically is a Latin word which means on this side of, as opposed to trans, across. So transgender is opposed to cisgender. You see, Nitin, therefore, is not a cisgender, right? Because the gender that has been assigned to him, and he doesn't identify with that. He has other sexual preferences, and he has every right to have these other sexual preferences, which is denied by an oppressive, patriarchal, heteronormative society. And what does Dattani do? Dattani wonderfully, works through the custom of the Indian marriage tradition. Because you see, the Indian marriage privileges family prestige over personal choices. It subordinates the bride's family. It kinds of, validates heterosexual relationships, and it continues to torture and oppress women within that relationship, so that there is no other possibility of escape within that matrimonial relations, right? So this is how it works, and this is briefly how I wanted to say more or less these things. I think I have drawn attention to some of the most important issues that are there, critical issues that are there in Bravely for the Queen. Actually, one thing that I was, really surprised to find out, because I have not been teaching Bravely for the Queen for some time now, because it's not in our MA syllabus, but I was surprised to find out that there is a huge array of materials that is available on Bravely for the Queen, and what we tend to do is we tend to go to YouTube, okay? But you see, I will warn you, this is primarily for the students. There is a lot of, thing that in YouTube that is not of the up to the mark, okay? So you need to be very careful about what you use as materials. Just because you get something from the web, you can't snatch it and use it right away. So use your own discretion in order to understand plays like Bravely for the Queen. So yeah, Devayan, thank you. I think I'm done with this. If there are any questions, I would be happy to take them.
Thank you, Samipendra. Thank you so much for this wonderful lecture. Now, if anybody has any queries or questions or suggestions or doubts, they can discuss it now. You may type the questions for Dr. Samipendra Banerjee, because if everybody starts speaking, then it will be chaotic. So the questions are welcome now.
Okay, I think Devayan has already put a question. What is the theatrical technique of presenting Kanhaiya on stage? Well, you see, it will depend on the director. It's a very good question, but you see, Kanhaiya is an abstraction. Probably it's he could also be imaginary. Okay, because Kanhaiya doesn't appear on the stage, so that gives us some kind of a leverage, some kind of a freedom to deal with Kanhaiya. It is not necessary to present Kanhaiya directly, because all what we hear about Kanhaiya. So this is why you see the visual detailing is so important, because later on Lalita says, okay, I can see someone, the auto rickshaw is parked there and someone is climbing up the wall and etc. So it's always a kind of a second reporting, a narration. Okay, so we don't really get to see Kanhaiya on the stage, so that big part can be avoided. So I hope the students of THLH college who are having, I know that you're having your exams and your 10th sem is also coming up. I hope this talk benefits you in some way or the other. If there is anything that I missed out, or maybe you would like to know about this, I'm available. If you think there are later, you can ask anything to me on this particular topic. I am also glad to respond to that. My email ID, Devayon can share with you all, so that you can mail me, okay, if you have any further questions. One thing I now remember I didn't touch upon was the idea of the bonsai, okay. That is a very significant symbol, the idea of the bonsai. See, it is a stunted growth, okay. The growth that has been trimmed, the full maturity, but in a very stunted and a strange. And at one point, Jiten also mentions that it is ugly. Okay, so this ugliness is also a part of the stunted growth. And of course, the symbol is how patriarchy works. Patriarchal oppression, violation of the women have ultimately stunted them. Their wings are clipped so that they cannot fully grow, so that they cannot fully mature. And here, being fully grown or fully mature means having freedom, having a space of their own, having a voice of their own to speak out. So all this has been, kind of curtailed, cluttered. So there's a constant recurrence of the idea of the bonsai. The bonsai is there in the Act 1 when it is the women, and it's there in the office in Act 2 when it is the men, and it's also in Act 3, right? I don't think so. The play has not been adapted. At least I am not aware of any film version. Okay. There have been, of course, Dattani has worked on films repeatedly, regularly. There are several films that have been done. You see, I mean, this is also interesting because as film directors look for subjects. I'm not talking about the commercial run-of-the-mill films, but, even the parallel cinema, the tradition of parallel cinema that is so active today. I mean, probably nobody thought of it, but Bravely for the Queen can make a wonderful film. There is Dance Like a Man, which is there. Mango Souffle is there, and there's So Very Morning Raga is there. There are so many films that are there on the Dattani's place. Okay, so if you permit, then can we end it here? If there are
thank you so much. Thank you so much, Samipendra. And it would be of great help for the students if you can give some sources of these interviews that you are talking about. And if you can give your email ID in the writing section.
Sure. I'm just typing it down.
Yeah.
So this is my email, okay, and the interviews are there actually in several books, okay. In Tutun Mukherjee's book, in Anjali Multani's Perspectives on Mahesh Dattani, Critical Perspectives on Mahesh Dattani, Anjali Multani's books are famous actually. Anjali is one of the leading critics on Mahesh Dattani, and I have also worked with Anjali on several of our projects. So in those books, the interviews are always there near the end of the chapters. Me and My Place. This was the book that Dattani published. This is a semi-autobiographical work. This was published in 2014. This is the best source. That's where Dattani looks back at his own career, at his choice of theatre, why he does plays, etc. And Erin B. Me has also been interviewing Dattani consistently. In the Drama Contemporary India, the book, Erin B. Me has this interview. But I think if I get that, I'll just, actually, as I told you, my books are all in a different place. So give me some time, I will send these materials to you, okay?
Thank you so much, Samipendra. And
Yes.
So it's already quite some time, and we have detained Samipendra for quite some time now. It was a wonderful lecture. It will be very helpful for our students. And as a closure, I hand over to Camellia Boiragho, my colleague, who will be addressing the vote of thanks. Over to you, Camellia.
Okay, thank you, Devanda, and thank you, sir. Thank you, Samipendra, sir, for being so fascinating with your wonderful observations on Mahesh Dattani in his total area of drama, as well as focusing particularly on the topic Bravely Fought the Queen. Now, I'm quite sure that our students will really be helped by this lecture, and I would also thank our principal, sir, for being here. I am personally, I do not have much acquaintance with Indian theatre as such, but the kind of wonderful session that I enjoyed right now will perhaps make me more interested in this area as well. I will not detain, sir, really. So I think we will have such opportunities in future as well, where all of us can once again join, and I hope that sir will also be there with us in future such sessions as well. I hope that all of us will stay fit and fine in this difficult time. Thank you, principal sir, for being here. Thanks to the students. Thanks to the organizers. So I think we should call it a day for now.
Yes, just one thing. I mean, thanks once again to the students for being here, for listening for such a long time. And it was my pleasure, actually. Thanks to all the organizers. And yes, all of you should be more involved in theater, because, it helps. It's not just about doing a great theater, but it's about communication skills. It's about your own mind. It's about working in a team. It's wonderful. Okay, bye.
Yes,
see you.
absolutely. Okay, so it is our privilege that we have this opportunity to have speaking you with us. Our college is really a small one, and this is all because of Principal Sir and Debanda, our head of the department, who have taken the pains of organizing such a wonderful webinar. Thanks to all once again. Debanda, এবার যা
Okay.
বলার বলে দিন।
Okay, thank you so much, Samipendra. Hope you stay safe and fine. I know that you have been going through many troubles at home because of the health situation of your dad. So hope everybody stays well and fit and healthy. And thank you so much for being with us. So goodbye for now. Thank you so much.